Captain Marcus Chen had seen many worlds during his 15 years exploring the Outer Rim territories, but nothing had prepared him for the crystalline beauty of Zephyria Prime. The planet's surface sparkled like a massive gemstone, with towering spires of natural crystal formations reaching toward twin suns that painted the sky in shades of amber and rose gold. His transport ship, the Wanderer, touched down in what appeared to be a clearing between the crystal forests. Marcus stepped out, breathing in air that tasted faintly of copper and ozone. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, making each step feel like a small bounce. He had come here following rumors of rare minerals, but what he found instead would change the course of galactic history. The distress signal reached his ears before he saw its source. High-pitched, melodic, but unmistakably filled with terror. Marcus followed the sound deeper into the crystal maze, his hand instinctively moving to the plasma pistol at his hip. The crystals around him hummed with an energy that made his teeth ache. Through a gap between two massive crystal pillars, he saw them. Three creatures that looked like walking nightmares surrounded a figure huddled against a crystal wall. The attackers stood 8 feet tall, covered in black chitinous armor with multiple arms ending in razor-sharp claws. Their heads were insectoid, with compound eyes that reflected the crystal light in thousands of fragments. The Vrak, he realized with a chill. He had heard stories about these raiders from the dark nebula. The figure they threatened was clearly not human. She stood barely 5 feet tall, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the crystal light. Her hair was silver white, flowing like liquid mercury down her back. She wore robes of deep purple that marked her as nobility among her people, the Zephyrians. But what caught Marcus's attention were her eyes, large, luminous violet orbs filled with intelligence and desperate courage. One of the Vrak chittered something in its harsh language and raised a clawed appendage toward the princess. Without thinking, Marcus drew his plasma pistol and fired. The energy bolt struck the creature's center mass, sending it crashing into a crystal formation that shattered on impact. The other two Vrak spun toward him, their compound eyes fixing on this new threat. Marcus rolled behind a crystal pillar as razor-sharp projectiles shattered the formation where he had been standing. He could hear the Vrak communicating in their clicking, buzzing language, coordinating their attack. Marcus popped out from cover and fired 2 quick shots. One went wide, superheating a crystal and causing it to explode in a shower of fragments. The second shot clipped one of the Vrak in its shoulder, spinning it around but not dropping it. These things were tough. The wounded Vrak charged him while its companion moved to flank. Marcus dove to the side, feeling claws whistle through the air where his head had been. He came up firing, emptying his power cell into the charging creature. The multiple plasma bolts finally brought it down, its chitinous armor smoking and cracked. The last Vrak, seeing its companions fallen, let out a piercing shriek that seemed to shake the very crystals around them. It raised something that looked like a weapon, a twisted metal device that began to glow with malevolent energy. Marcus's pistol clicked empty. The princess, who had been silent during the battle, suddenly stood. She pressed her hands against the crystal wall behind her and began to sing. The sound was unlike anything Marcus had ever heard, pure, beautiful, and somehow alive. The crystals around them began to resonate, picking up her song and amplifying it until the very air vibrated with harmonic energy. The Vrak's weapon overloaded in its hands, exploding in a burst of energy that sent the creature flying backward. It struck a crystal formation with bone-crushing force and lay still, dark fluid seeping from cracks in its armor. Silence fell over the crystal grove, broken only by the gentle humming of the formations as they slowly returned to their normal state. Marcus stood slowly, his ears ringing from the harmonic assault. He looked at the princess, who swayed on her feet, clearly exhausted from whatever she had just done. "Are you hurt?" Marcus asked, then realized she probably didn't understand English. He tried a few words in Galactic Standard, the trade language used by most spacefaring species. To his surprise, she responded in accented but clear Standard. "I am unharmed, thanks to your intervention. I am Princess Lyralii of House Starsong, heir to the crystal throne of Zephyria." She bowed gracefully, a gesture that somehow managed to convey both gratitude and regal dignity. Marcus Chen, independent trader and apparently knight-errant today, he replied with a slight smile. "What were those things, and why were they after you?" The princess's expression darkened. "Vrak raiders from the Void Nebula. They have been attacking our outer settlements for months, taking prisoners. This is the first time they have dared to hunt so close to the capital. She looked at the fallen creatures with a mixture of fear and disgust. They were not trying to kill me. They wanted to capture me alive. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The Vrak were known for their slave markets, but taking a princess suggested something far more sinister. We need to get you back to safety. Where is your escort? Lyreliai's eyes filled with pain. Dead. All of them. My personal guard, my handmaidens, even my teacher Corvain who had served my family for 50 years. The Vrak ambushed our transport as we returned from the Singing Caverns. Her voice broke slightly. I only escaped because the crystals here responded to my voice and created confusion among our attackers. Marcus looked around at the crystal formations with new understanding. The Zephyrians weren't just living among these crystals, they were somehow connected to them. The princess's song hadn't just made noise, it had turned the very landscape into a weapon. Can you call for help? Contact your people? Marcus asked, pulling out his communication device and checking for signals. The Vrak are jamming all frequencies. Even if they were not, the nearest Zephyrian patrol would take hours to reach us, and I fear more Vrak are coming. As if summoned by her words, distant sounds echoed through the crystal maze, the harsh chittering voices of approaching enemies. Marcus grabbed the princess's hand. My ship isn't far. Can you run? She nodded, gathering her robes. Lead the way, Marcus Chen. I place my life in your hands. They ran through the crystal forest, the princess proving surprisingly agile despite her formal attire. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew closer. Marcus could hear the distinctive whine of Vrak hoverbikes cutting through the air above the crystal canopy. There! Lyreliai pointed to a gap in the crystals ahead. I can see your vessel. The Wanderer sat in the clearing, its hull scarred from years of use but its engines still humming with power. Marcus had never been so happy to see his old ship. They raced across the open ground, Marcus's finger already on the remote ignition for the engines. A blast of energy struck the ground next to them, sending up a shower of superheated soil. 3 Vrak hoverbikes descended from above, their riders firing energy weapons while trying to herd their quarry like predators hunting game. Keep running! Marcus shouted, turning to fire his backup pistol at the nearest bike. His shot went wide, but it forced the Vrak pilot to veer off course, buying them precious seconds. They reached the Wanderer's cargo ramp just as it finished lowering. Marcus practically threw the princess up the ramp and followed, slapping the emergency seal button. The ramp began to close as energy blasts struck the hull around them. Hold on to something. Marcus called out, racing for the pilot's chair. The princess grabbed a cargo net as he fired the engines. The Wanderer lifted off just as more Vrak appeared in the clearing, some on foot and others riding their hoverbikes in complex aerial patterns. One of the bikes got too close, its rider trying to attach something to the ship's hull. Marcus rolled the Wanderer hard to starboard, sending the Vrak tumbling through the air to crash among the crystals below. Where can I take you? Marcus asked as they cleared the atmosphere. Where would you be safe? The Royal Citadel, Lyreliai replied, then paused. But, no, that is likely under watch. The Vrak could not have known my travel plans unless... Her face paled even further. Unless there is a traitor in the court. Marcus set course for high orbit while he considered their options. The princess sat in the co-pilot's chair, her royal composure cracking as the reality of her situation sank in. She had lost her guards, her transport, and possibly the loyalty of someone close to her family. Tell me about these Vrak, Marcus said, trying to distract her while he planned their next move. How long have they been raiding your territory? 6 months, she replied, her voice steadying as she focused on the tactical situation. At first, they only attacked mining settlements and trade convoys. We increased patrols, but they seemed to always know where we would be weakest. She looked out at the stars visible through the viewport. My father, King Thorian, believes they are being guided by someone with knowledge of our defenses. A spy in your government. So it would seem. But the court has been purged twice in the last month. Father trusts no one except his inner circle, and, even then. She trailed off, lost in thought. Marcus's sensor array chimed softly. Princess, we have a problem. There's a VRAC heavy cruiser in high orbit, and it's moving to intercept us. Through the viewport, they could see the massive ship approaching. It was a ugly, functional vessel, all angles and weapon ports, painted flat black to blend with the void between stars. Its hull bristled with energy weapons and missile launchers. They anticipated this, Lyralii whispered. They knew I would try to escape off-world. Marcus's hands flew over the controls, plotting jump coordinates for faster-than-light travel. We're not sticking around to find out what they want with you. Hold tight. The VRAC cruiser fired, sending a spread of energy bolts toward the Wanderer. Marcus threw his ship into a spiral dive toward the planet's surface, using its gravity well to increase their acceleration. The larger ship followed, its superior firepower offset by the Wanderer's greater maneuverability. They're hurting us, Marcus realized as another volley forced him to change course. They don't want us to reach jump distance from the planet. The moon, Lyralii said suddenly. There is a Zephyrian research station on Zephyria's largest moon. If we could reach it. Worth a try. Marcus adjusted course, skimming the planet's atmosphere to use its gravity to slingshot toward the moon. The VRAC cruiser followed, but the maneuver had gained them some distance. The research station appeared on their sensors, a small cluster of buildings on the moon's surface surrounded by defensive shields. Marcus activated his emergency beacon, broadcasting on all frequencies in the hope that someone friendly would hear. The response came immediately. Unknown vessel, this is Research Station Harmony. You are being pursued by hostile forces. We are raising our shields and charging defensive weapons. This is Captain Chen aboard the Wanderer. I have Princess Lyralii aboard and request immediate sanctuary. There was a pause, then a different voice came on the comm. Princess? This is Commander Vax. We are honored to assist you. The station's defenses are at your disposal. Marcus brought the Wanderer in fast, diving toward the station as the VRAC cruiser closed the distance. Energy bolts lit up space around them as both ships fired. The station's defense grid activated, sending streams of plasma toward the attacking cruiser. They touched down in the station's landing bay just as the overhead shields flared under enemy fire. Marcus powered down the engines and helped the princess from her seat. She seemed to have aged years in the last few hours, the weight of loss and responsibility visible in her luminous eyes. You saved my life, she said simply. My people are in your debt. Just doing what anyone would do, Marcus replied, though he knew that wasn't true. Most traders would have avoided the situation entirely. Commander Vax met them at the airlock. He was an older Zephyrian with silver hair and wearing the deep blue uniform of the Royal Research Division. Princess Lyralii, we received word of the attack on your transport. I am sorry for your losses. Thank you, Commander. This is Captain Marcus Chen, who saved me from the VRAC raiders. She turned to Marcus. I know my father will want to meet you and thank you personally. The situation has changed, Your Highness, Vax said carefully. We have been monitoring communications from the capital. There has been an incident. Lyralii's face went white. My father? He lives, but barely. There was an attempt on his life during the emergency council session called after your disappearance. He is gravely wounded and may not survive. Vax's expression was grim. The attack came from within the royal guard itself. The princess staggered, and Marcus caught her arm to steady her. The full scope of the conspiracy was becoming clear. The VRAC raids, the ambush on her transport, and now an assassination attempt on the king. Someone was making a coordinated play for the Crystal Throne. Who leads the kingdom now? Marcus asked. Prince Theron, the king's brother, has assumed emergency powers as regent, Vax replied. He has declared martial law and closed all spaceports. He claims it is to root out the traitors, but you suspect he might be the traitor himself, Lyralii finished, her voice hollow with realization. My uncle has always believed that father's peaceful policies made Zephyria weak. He has advocated for more aggressive expansion and military buildup. Marcus felt pieces of a larger puzzle falling into place. What better way to justify a military buildup than to create an external threat? Stage some raids, make it look like your defenses are failing. And remove the rightful heir while you're at it, the princess added bitterly. With father dead or incapacitated and me missing or killed by raiders, Theron would become king by right of succession. Outside, the Vrak cruiser had withdrawn beyond the station's defensive range, but it remained in orbit like a patient predator. Commander Vax led them to his office, where star charts and intelligence reports covered every available surface. We have been monitoring Vrak communications since the raids began, he explained. Most of it is encrypted, but we have detected patterns that suggest coordination with someone inside our government. Timing of attacks, knowledge of patrol routes, even advance warning of troop movements. Marcus studied the charts, his military experience from the colonial wars helping him piece together the tactical picture. They're not trying to conquer Zephyria. This is all about creating chaos and fear while positioning your uncle to seize power. The question is, what do we do about it? Lyralii asked. I cannot return to the capital while Theron controls it, but I cannot abandon my people either. You have allies, Vax assured her. Many in the military remain loyal to your father and to you. Duke Corrigan of the northern provinces has been asking questions about the raids. General Arxis of the Home Fleet suspects treachery. They would rally to your banner if you could prove Theron's involvement. Proof, Marcus mused. That's going to be the trick. We need evidence that the Vrak are working with him, something more than just suspicious timing. As if summoned by his words, an alarm began sounding throughout the station. Vax rushed to his communication console, his face grim as reports flooded in. Multiple Vrak ships are approaching, he announced. Not just raiders, this is a full battle fleet. They're demanding we surrender you, princess, or they will destroy the station and everyone on it. Through the office window, they could see the dark shapes of Vrak vessels moving against the starfield. There were at least a dozen ships, including several heavy cruisers and what looked like a troop transport capable of landing an assault force. How long before they arrive? Marcus asked. 20 minutes, perhaps less, Vax replied. Lyralii stood, her royal bearing returning despite the impossible odds. I will not let innocent people die for my sake. Perhaps if I surrender. No, Marcus said firmly. That's exactly what they want, and it won't save anyone here. They can't leave witnesses to their cooperation with Theron. He turned to Vax. What kind of research do you do here? Anything that might help us? Crystal resonance studies, mostly. We have been investigating ways to enhance the natural harmonics of Zephyrian crystals for communication and energy storage. Vax paused, understanding dawning in his eyes. There are experimental resonance amplifiers here, devices that could theoretically boost a singer's ability to affect crystal formations across great distances. Like the princess did back on the surface, Marcus said, pieces of a plan beginning to form. Could she use something like that to communicate with the crystals in the capital? Send a message to your allies? Theoretically, yes, but the power requirements would be enormous, and we have never tested the equipment on such a scale. Lyralii was already moving toward the door. Show me these amplifiers. If there is a chance to expose my uncle's treachery and rally the loyal forces, I must take it. The research laboratory occupied the station's lower level, a vast chamber filled with crystal formations that had been carefully cultivated and arranged in precise geometric patterns. At the center stood a complex array of technological equipment connected to a raised platform surrounded by resonance crystals the size of trees. This is incredible, Marcus breathed, looking at the setup. It's like a cross between a communications array and a musical instrument. The theory is that a trained singer can use the crystals to send messages across vast distances through harmonic resonance, Vax explained, activating the equipment. The crystals on Zephyria are all connected through quantum entanglement at the molecular level. Touch one, and its partner crystals throughout the galaxy respond instantly. Can you reach the capital from here? If the princess has sufficient skill, yes. But the attempt could kill her. The psychic strain of connecting to so many crystals simultaneously has never been tested. Lyralii stepped onto the platform without hesitation. My people need to know the truth. Whatever the cost to myself. Marcus felt a surge of admiration for her courage. In the few hours he had known her, she had shown more bravery and selflessness than most people managed in a lifetime. Princess, wait. Let me go with you. Humans cannot sing to the crystals, Vax protested. Maybe not, but I can stabilize the power grid and monitor the resonance levels. If something goes wrong, I might be able to pull her out of the connection before it kills her. The Zephyrian research commander hesitated, then nodded. It is worth the risk. The Vrak fleet will be in firing range in 15 minutes. Marcus took his position at the control console while Lyralii stood among the towering crystals. She closed her eyes and began to sing, starting with the same pure, beautiful tone he had heard in the crystal forest. The laboratory crystals responded immediately, beginning to glow with soft inner light. Through the equipment, Marcus could monitor the energy flows as the princess's voice reached out across space, touching crystal formations on the planet's surface. The power readings climbed steadily as more and more crystals joined the harmonic network. I can feel them, Lyralii said, her voice dreamy and distant. Crystals in the royal palace, in the military compounds, in homes throughout the capital. I can send my voice to all of them. Be careful, Marcus warned, watching the stress indicators climb toward dangerous levels. Don't push too hard. But the princess was already deep in the crystal trance. Her voice rose, carrying words in the ancient Zephyrian tongue across the quantum-entangled network. Every crystal formation on the planet and its colonies was becoming a speaker, broadcasting her message to anyone who would listen. On the viewscreen, Marcus could see the Vrak fleet approaching, their weapons charging for the final assault. But something strange was happening on the planet's surface. The great crystal spires of the capital city were beginning to glow, their light visible even from orbital distance. She's doing it, Vax whispered in amazement. She's reached the home crystals. Through the communication equipment, they could hear the princess's voice being amplified by billions of crystal formations across the planet. She spoke of her father's condition, of the assassination attempt, of the evidence pointing to Prince Theron's treachery. She called on all loyal Zephyrians to resist the usurper and defend the true crown. The response was immediate. Military units that had been confined to barracks broke free and seized key installations. The northern provinces declared for Princess Lyralii. Even in space, several ships of the home fleet changed course toward the research station, their commanders choosing loyalty over fear. But the effort was taking its toll on the princess. Her face was pale as marble, and Marcus could see stress fractures appearing in some of the smaller crystals around the platform. The quantum harmonics were reaching critical levels. Princess, that's enough, he called out. You've done it, the message is sent. She didn't respond, lost in the crystal network. The power readings spiked as she tried to maintain contact with every formation on the planet. If she pushed much harder, the resonance feedback would kill her. Marcus made a decision that went against every safety protocol. He stepped onto the platform and grabbed the princess's hand. The contact with the crystals hit him like an electric shock, but he held on, using his own life force to help stabilize the harmonic field. For a moment, he could feel what she felt, the vast network of crystal formations stretching across the planet, each one vibrating with life and intelligence. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, a perspective on existence that no human mind was meant to comprehend. Together, Lyralii whispered, her hand gripping his with surprising strength. We can reach everyone. Their combined will push the message further, carrying it beyond Zephyria to colony worlds and distant outposts. The truth spread like wildfire through the crystal networks, exposing Prince Theron's conspiracy and rallying support for the rightful princess. The Vrak fleet commander must have realized that his mission had failed. Instead of continuing the attack on the research station, the dark ships began withdrawing, jumping to faster-than-light speed before the approaching Zephyrian naval units could engage them. Marcus felt the crystal connection fade as the princess collapsed in his arms. The laboratory crystals dimmed to their normal glow, and the terrible pressure in his mind lifted. Lyralii was unconscious but breathing, her pulse steady if weak. is she all right? Vax asked, rushing to check on the princess. I think so, Marcus replied, though he felt drained himself. The resonance feedback was manageable with two of us sharing the load. As if to prove his words, Lyreliai's eyes fluttered open. She looked up at Marcus with an expression of wonder and gratitude. You touched the crystal song, she whispered. I felt your mind joining with mine. How is that possible? I have no idea, Marcus admitted. But it worked. Your message got through. Reports were flooding in from across the star system. Prince Theron's forces were in retreat or surrender. The loyal military units had secured the capital and arrested the conspirators. King Thorian, though still weak from his wounds, had resumed command and officially named his daughter as his heir. The conspiracy is broken, Vax announced with satisfaction. Prince Theron has fled off-world, probably to join his Vrak allies wherever they are hiding. Lyrelii struggled to sit up, Marcus helping her steady herself. My people are safe, she said, relief evident in her voice. But this is only the beginning. Theron will not give up his ambitions easily, and the Vrak fleet remains a threat. Marcus nodded, already thinking ahead to the challenges that lay ahead. The princess had shown incredible courage and power today, but she would need allies if she was going to face the trials to come. And, for reasons he couldn't entirely explain, he found himself wanting to be one of those allies. What happens now? He asked. Lyrelii looked at him with those luminous violet eyes, and Marcus saw in them a strength that had been forged in the crucible of betrayal and loss. Now, Marcus-Chen, we go to face my father the king. There are some things that can only be settled before the Crystal Throne. The journey to Zephyria's capital took 3 days aboard a royal escort vessel, the Crystal Harmony. Marcus had transferred from his battered wanderer to the sleek Zephyrian ship, which moved through space with an elegance that seemed to defy physics. The hull itself appeared to be made of some kind of living crystal that shifted color based on the ship's speed and the emotional state of its crew. Princess Lyrelii had spent most of the journey in meditation, preparing herself for the difficult reunion with her father. Marcus used the time to learn more about Zephyrian culture and politics from Commander Vax, who had joined them on the trip to provide testimony about the research station's role in exposing the conspiracy. King Thorian has ruled for over 2 centuries, Vax explained as they sat in the ship's observation lounge, watching the blue-green disk of Zephyria grow larger ahead of them. He is beloved by the people for bringing peace and prosperity to our worlds, but some of the nobility have grown restless. They believe we should be expanding our territory aggressively rather than focusing on scientific advancement and cultural development. Marcus sipped the Zephyrian equivalent of coffee, a sweet, energizing liquid that tasted like liquid starlight. And Prince Theron led that faction? Indeed. He argued that our peaceful nature made us vulnerable to species like the Vrak. Ironically, his solution was to ally with them in secret to create the very threat he claimed to want to defend against. Through the observation window, Marcus could see the capital city of Resonance spreading across a vast crystal plain. The buildings were grown rather than built, shaped from the same living crystal as the ship's hull. Spires twisted skyward in impossible spirals, connected by bridges that looked like frozen music. At the center of it all rose the Royal Citadel, a massive crystal formation that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. It's beautiful, Marcus said, genuinely awed by the sight. The city sings, Vax replied with pride. Every building is tuned to a specific harmonic frequency. When the wind blows through the spires, the entire city becomes a massive musical instrument. It is said that the song changes based on the mood of the people who live there. As if to demonstrate his words, a low, melodious tone reached them even through the ship's hull. The sound was hauntingly beautiful, filled with hope and sorrow in equal measure. Princess Lyrelii joined them at the observation window as they approached the royal landing platform. She had changed from her damaged robes into formal court attire, a gown of deep blue crystal fabric that seemed to contain captured starlight. A circlet of silver and sapphire crowned her silver hair, marking her status as heir to the throne. My father will want to thank you personally, she told Marcus. What you did at the research station, using your own life force to help stabilize the crystal network, should have been impossible for a human. Father will be very curious about how you managed it. I'm curious about that myself, Marcus admitted. I felt something when I touched the crystals with you, something I can't explain. Perhaps King Thorian can provide answers. He is the most powerful singer of his generation and has spent decades studying the deeper mysteries of crystal resonance. She paused, her expression becoming troubled. If he survives the injuries Theron's assassins inflicted. The ship touched down on a landing platform carved from a single massive crystal. Royal guards in ceremonial armor met them at the airlock, their weapons beautiful works of art that nonetheless looked devastatingly effective. Their captain, a tall Zephyrian with intricate tattoos covering his face and neck, bowed deeply to the princess. Your Highness, His Majesty awaits you in the resonance chamber. He has asked that Captain Chen accompany you immediately. They were escorted through corridors lined with living crystal walls that shifted color as they passed. Marcus noticed that the guards kept glancing at him with mixtures of curiosity and wariness. News of the human who had helped save the princess had apparently spread quickly through the court. The resonance chamber was a vast dome at the heart of the royal citadel. The walls were covered in crystal formations that ranged from tiny gems to massive pillars, each one humming with subtle harmonic frequencies. At the center of the chamber, on a raised dais surrounded by the most beautiful crystals Marcus had ever seen, stood the crystal throne. King Thorian sat upon the throne, and Marcus immediately understood why he was considered one of the greatest rulers in galactic history. Despite his obvious injuries, his left arm was in a crystalline cast and healing lights played across bandages on his chest. He radiated an aura of quiet strength and wisdom. His hair was silver white like his daughter's, but his eyes were a deeper blue that seemed to hold the depths of space itself. Father, Princess Lyralii said, rushing to his side. I feared I would never see you again. My dear daughter, the king replied, his voice carrying the musical quality that marked all Zephyrian speech but amplified by years of crystal singing. I am not so easily removed from this universe. And I owe my life to our human guest. King Thorian's gaze fixed on Marcus, and the human felt as if he were being examined by some vast intelligence. The king's eyes seemed to look right through him, seeing things that Marcus himself was not aware of. Captain Marcus Chen, the king said, rising from his throne despite his obvious pain. You saved my daughter's life, exposed my brother's treachery, and helped her rally our forces at a critical moment. Zephyria owes you a debt that can never be repaid. Marcus bowed, not sure of the proper protocol but trying to show respect. I only did what anyone would do in the same situation, Your Majesty. No, the king said firmly. Most beings would have avoided involvement entirely. Few would have risked their lives for a stranger. And none save perhaps my daughter herself could have survived direct contact with our crystal network. He descended from the dais, moving with careful dignity. Tell me, Captain Chen, have you ever heard the term resonance compatible? No, sir. It is a rare condition that occurs perhaps once in a million births among our people. Those who possess it can form deeper connections with our crystals than normal, even to the point of temporary consciousness merger. The king's eyes were intent on Marcus's face. We have never encountered a non-Zephyrian who showed even basic compatibility, much less the advanced resonance you demonstrated. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. What does that mean? Before the king could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the citadel. The crystal walls flashed red, and urgent voices echoed through the chamber's communication system. A guard captain rushed into the chamber, his face grim with urgency. Your Majesty, long-range sensors detect a massive fleet approaching the system. Configuration and energy signatures match frac warships, but the fleet is 10 times larger than anything we have seen before. King Thorian's expression hardened. Theron did not flee in defeat. He has convinced the Vrak to launch a full invasion. He turned to his daughter. How long do we have? 18 hours before they reach orbital distance, the guard captain reported. Our home fleet has been recalled, but we are outnumbered at least 5-1. Princess Lyralii stepped forward. Father, we must evacuate the civilians and prepare for siege. The crystalline barriers around the capital can withstand orbital bombardment for days if we channel enough resonance energy to them. No, the king said quietly. Running and hiding will not solve this problem. Theron has made alliance with the Vrak, and they will not stop with Zephyria. They will use our worlds as a base to attack other peaceful species throughout this sector of the galaxy. Marcus studied the tactical display that had appeared in the chamber's center. The approaching Vrak fleet was indeed massive, dozens of heavy cruisers, hundreds of smaller warships, and what looked like several planet-killer dreadnoughts. The Zephyrian home fleet was impressive, but they would be overwhelmed in a direct engagement. "Your Majesty," Marcus said carefully, "may I make a suggestion?" The king nodded. "Please, Captain. You have already proven your tactical insight. The Vrak expect you to either run or fight conventionally. What if you did neither?" Marcus pointed to the display. "Their fleet is impressive, but it's also concentrated. If you could find a way to disrupt their formations, force them to spread out." "The crystals," Princess Lyralii said suddenly, understanding dawning in her luminous eyes. "Father, what if we could extend the resonance network beyond the planet? Create harmonic interference on a massive scale?" King Thorian was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant as he considered the possibility. "It would require every singer on Zephyria working in perfect harmony. The power requirements would be enormous, and the psychic strain." He looked at his daughter with a mixture of pride and fear. "It has never been attempted." "What exactly are you proposing?" Marcus asked. "Every Zephyrian crystal is quantum entangled with others of similar harmonic frequency," the king explained. "In theory, if enough singers worked together, we could create a resonance wave that would propagate through space itself. Any ship with crystalline components in its hull or equipment would be affected." "Do Vrak ships use crystals?" "Their power cores are based on corrupted Zephyrian crystal technology stolen in previous raids," Princess Lyralii said grimly. "Father, it could work. If we could overload their power systems." "The risk is enormous," the king warned. "The kind of coordinated singing required could kill every participant if the harmonics are not perfectly controlled. And we would need someone to anchor the network, someone with the resonance strength to maintain stability while others pour their energy into the effect." Marcus saw where this was leading. "You want the princess to be that anchor?" "I want no such thing," King Thorian said sharply. "But she is the strongest singer of her generation, and, with her demonstrated ability to connect with multiple crystal networks simultaneously." He trailed off, his face showing the agony of a father being forced to risk his child's life. "I'll do it," Princess Lyralii said without hesitation. "My people's freedom is worth any risk." "Not alone," Marcus said firmly. "I was able to help stabilize the connection at the research station. Maybe I can do the same thing here on a larger scale." "Captain Shen, the forces involved would be 1,000 times greater than what you experienced before," the king warned. "The resonance feedback could destroy your mind entirely." Marcus thought about the Vrak fleet approaching, about the peaceful Zephyrian cities that would be reduced to rubble if the invasion succeeded, about the princess who had shown such courage in the face of overwhelming odds. "Then, we'd better get it right the first time." The next several hours were a whirlwind of preparation. King Thorian, despite his injuries, took personal charge of coordinating the planetary defense. Every crystal singer on Zephyria, from master vocalists in the Royal Conservatory to children who had just learned their first harmonic scales, was brought into the network. Marcus worked with the royal engineers to modify the Crystal Throne's resonance amplifiers. If Princess Lyralii was going to anchor a planet-wide crystal network, she would need every technological advantage they could provide. The throne itself was revealed to be far more than a ceremonial seat. It was actually a massive crystal formation that had been shaped into furniture, connected to every major crystal formation on the planet. "The throne has been the heart of Zephyria's crystal network for over 1,000 years, Chief Engineer Corvex explained as they made the modifications. "Previous kings have used it to communicate across vast distances, but never for anything approaching this scale." Princess Lyralii spent the time in intensive preparation with the royal crystal masters, learning techniques for harmonic control that normally took years to master. Marcus watched her practice, admiring the way she seemed to become one with the crystals around her, her voice weaving complex patterns that made the very air vibrate with power. "You do not have to do this," she told him during a brief break. "The risk to you is enormous, and this is not your world to defend." "It became my world the moment I decided to help you," Marcus replied. Besides, someone needs to keep you anchored to reality while you're communing with planetary-scale crystal networks. She smiled, the first genuinely happy expression he had seen from her since the ordeal began. You are either very brave or very foolish, Marcus-chan. Probably both. As the Vrak fleet approached, reports flooded in from the outer sensor stations. The enemy ships were even more numerous than initially estimated, and long-range scans detected troop transports carrying invasion armies. Prince Theron clearly intended to conquer Zephyria completely rather than simply raid it. They are demanding our surrender, reported Admiral Kessex of the Home Fleet. Prince Theron is offering to spare civilian lives if we acknowledge him as rightful king and submit to Vrak occupation. Tell my brother, King Thorian said coldly, that the Crystal Throne recognizes only one rightful ruler, and she sits beside me now. The king had insisted on remaining in the resonance chamber despite his injuries, arguing that his presence would help stabilize the crystal network. Princess Lyralii sat upon the crystal throne, her hands resting on crystalline armrests that pulsed with inner light. Marcus stood beside the throne, his hand on her shoulder, ready to help channel the massive energies that would soon flow through the chamber. All stations report ready, Chief Engineer Korvex announced. Crystal singers throughout the planet have assumed their positions. Harmonic generators are at full power. Through the chamber's transparent dome, they could see the first Vrak ships entering orbital space. The enemy vessels were as ugly and menacing as Marcus remembered, their black hulls bristling with weapons. But now there were hundreds of them, blotting out the stars with their presence. They are taking positions for orbital bombardment, Admiral Kessex reported. Targeting the major cities and military installations. Begin the resonance, King Thorian commanded. Princess Lyralii closed her eyes and began to sing. Her voice was barely audible at first, but the crystal throne amplified it, sending the harmonics through the crystalline network that connected every major formation on the planet. One by one, the other singers joined in, their voices blending into a complex symphony that seemed to make the very ground vibrate with power. Marcus felt the familiar electric sensation as he connected to the crystal network through his contact with the princess. But, this time, the power flow was like standing in the path of a tidal wave. Energy coursed through him, threatening to overwhelm his human nervous system entirely. Hold steady, Lyralii whispered, her voice somehow audible despite the growing harmonic crescendo around them. I can feel you anchoring me. Don't let go. The resonance built to levels that strained the very air in the chamber. The crystal formations around them blazed with light, and Marcus could feel the network expanding beyond the planet itself, reaching out into space toward the approaching fleet. On the tactical display, the Vrak ships continued their approach, unaware of the trap being prepared for them. They moved in tight formations, their commanders confident in their overwhelming numerical advantage. Almost in range, Princess Lyralii said, her voice strained with the effort of controlling so much power. I can sense their crystal power cores. Corrupted harmonics, but still quantum entangled with our network. The moment came suddenly. The Vrak fleet reached optimal distance, and the princess released the accumulated resonance energy in one devastating pulse. The harmonic wave propagated through space at faster than light speeds, carried by the quantum entanglement between the Zephyrian crystals and the corrupted cores of the Vrak ships. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Throughout the enemy fleet, power cores overloaded and exploded. Ships that had been approaching in perfect formation suddenly found themselves crippled, their engines dead and weapons offline. Some of the smaller vessels were destroyed outright when their cores reached critical overload. But the effort was taking a terrible toll on the princess. Marcus could feel her life force being drained by the massive resonance pulse, her physical body struggling to channel energies that no individual should attempt to control. Stress fractures were appearing in some of the smaller crystals around the throne. Lyralii, that's enough. Marcus called out. You've crippled their fleet, you've done it. But she didn't respond. The harmonic network had achieved a kind of self-sustaining resonance, and she was trapped in the flow of power. If she couldn't break free of the connection soon, the energy feedback would kill her. Marcus made the same decision he had made at the research station. He stepped fully into the crystal field around the throne, accepting the full brunt of the harmonic energies. The power flow hit him like a physical blow, but his human nervous system proved oddly compatible with the crystal frequencies. For a moment, he shared the princess's perspective completely. He could feel every crystal on the planet, sense every ship in the Vrak fleet, even detect the quantum signatures of distant Zephyrian colonies. The universe became a vast web of interconnected harmonies, and he was a node in the network. But he also felt Lyraliai's life force fading under the strain. Using his own mental strength, he began to pull her back from the deep connection, gradually reducing the power flow until it reached manageable levels. The harmonic crescendo faded, leaving the resonance chamber in relative quiet. Princess Lyraliai collapsed forward, and Marcus caught her before she could fall from the throne. She was unconscious but breathing, her pulse weak but steady. "Status report," King Thorian called out, his voice hoarse with strain. 60% of the Vrak fleet is dead in space, Admiral Kessex reported with amazement. The remaining ships are attempting to withdraw, but their formations are completely broken. We are moving to engage with the home fleet. Through the dome, they could see the crippled Vrak ships drifting helplessly in orbit. Some were still exploding as their damaged power cores reached critical levels. The massive invasion fleet had been reduced to scattered stragglers in a matter of minutes. But, even as the immediate threat faded, Marcus could sense that something fundamental had changed. The resonance pulse had done more than just disable the enemy fleet, it had forged new connections in the crystal network, links that had never existed before. "Your Majesty," Chief Engineer Korvax said in a wondering voice, "the crystal formations are showing unprecedented harmonic synchronization. It's as if the entire planetary network has achieved a new level of integration." King Thorian looked at his unconscious daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. "The resonance pulse has created permanent changes in our crystal matrix. Lyraliai has not just saved our world, she has transformed it." Marcus felt the princess stirring in his arms. Her violet eyes opened slowly, focusing on his face with obvious effort. "Did it work?" she whispered. "It worked," he assured her. "The Vrak fleet is finished." "And Theron?" "Long-range sensors show his flagship jumping to hyperspace," Admiral Kessex reported. "He escaped with a handful of ships, but his invasion force has been destroyed." Princess Lyraliai tried to sit up, then thought better of it as dizziness overtook her. "He will not give up. Not as long as he lives." "Then, we will be ready for him," King Thorian said firmly. "Thanks to what you have done today, our crystal network is stronger than ever. And we have allies now who understand the stakes." The king looked at Marcus with an expression of deep gratitude. "Captain Shen, you have done more than save my daughter's life. You have helped save our entire civilization. I would be honored if you would accept a position as an advisor to the royal court." Marcus looked down at Princess Lyraliai, who was watching him with those luminous eyes. He thought about his life as a wandering trader, exploring the Rim territories in search of profit and adventure. It had been a good life, but perhaps it was time for something more meaningful. "I would be honored to serve, Your Majesty," he replied. "Though I suspect the princess and I will need to work closely together if we're going to be ready for Prince Theron's next attempt." "Indeed you will," the king agreed. "For I suspect that today's victory is only the beginning of a much larger conflict." 6 months after the failed Vrak invasion, Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the Royal Citadel, watching the twin suns of Zephyria set over the crystal spires of Resonance City. The view never failed to amaze him, but tonight his mind was occupied with more pressing concerns than scenic beauty. Intelligence reports had been filtering in for weeks about increased Vrak activity in the Outer Rim territories. Prince Theron, far from being discouraged by his defeat, had apparently been recruiting new allies and building a coalition of species opposed to the peaceful expansion of civilizations like Zephyria. The stakes had grown far beyond a simple succession dispute. "You look troubled," Princess Lyraliai said, joining him at the viewing window. In the months since the invasion, she had grown into her role as heir apparent, displaying a combination of wisdom and strength that reminded Marcus why he had been willing to risk everything to save her. "Your father's intelligence briefing was not encouraging," Marcus replied. "Theron has been busy. The alliance with the Korath Empire changes everything," she agreed. "The Korath have military technology that could neutralize our crystal defenses if they learn how to use it properly. The Korath were an ancient warrior species from the galactic core, known for their advanced weapons technology and ruthless efficiency in combat. If Theron had convinced them to join his cause, the peaceful worlds of the Outer Rim faced a threat unlike anything they had ever encountered. "There's something else," Marcus said, pulling up a holographic display from his communicator. "Remember the resonance compatibility your father mentioned? I've been researching it, and I think I understand why I was able to connect with your crystal network." Princess Lyralii studied the data with interest. "These genetic markers, they're not entirely human." "No, they're not. It seems my great-grandmother was not as human as family records claimed." Marcus highlighted specific sequences in his DNA profile. "There are markers here that match species from this sector of the galaxy. Species that were displaced from their homeworlds centuries ago." "The Diaspora Wars," Lyralii breathed. "When the Korath Empire first began expanding, they destroyed dozens of peaceful civilizations. The survivors scattered across the galaxy, many intermarrying with other species they encountered. Including humans, apparently. Which explains why I can resonate with Zephyrian crystals. I'm descended from refugees who fled Korath expansion centuries ago." Marcus closed the display. "And it means this conflict is more personal than I realized." Before Lyralii could respond, alarms began echoing through the Citadel. Emergency lights bathed the observation deck in red illumination as urgent announcements echoed through the communication system. "All senior staff report to the resonance chamber immediately. Priority 1 emergency." They rushed through the crystalline corridors toward the heart of the Citadel, joined by other members of the Royal Council. The resonance chamber buzzed with activity as military commanders and intelligence analysts filled King Thorian in on the developing situation. "Long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet approaching the system," Admiral Kessex reported grimly. "The configuration is unlike anything we have seen before, Vrak ships integrated with Korath technology and supported by vessels from at least 6 other hostile species." The tactical display showed the approaching armada in all its terrible glory. Hundreds of ships moved in perfect formation, their combined firepower enough to sterilize entire planets. At the center of the fleet flew a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the largest Zephyrian warships. Prince Theron's flagship, King Thorian identified the command vessel. But he is not alone. Sensors detect Korath battle cruisers and what appear to be Nexari mineships. He has built a true alliance of conquest. Marcus studied the enemy formations with growing unease. The Nexari were telepathic parasites who controlled conquered populations through mental domination. Their inclusion in Theron's alliance suggested goals far beyond simple territorial expansion. "They're not just coming to conquer Zephyria," he realized. "They want to break the entire peaceful alliance network in this sector. With Nexari mind control technology and Korath weapons, they could subjugate dozens of worlds." "Our home fleet cannot stand against such numbers," Admiral Kessex admitted reluctantly. "Even with our crystal defenses, they will overwhelm us through sheer weight of fire." Princess Lyralii stepped forward. "Then, we must not fight them conventionally. Father, what if we could extend the crystal network beyond our system? Create a defensive alliance based on harmonic resonance rather than military might?" King Thorian's eyes lit with understanding. "The ancient protocols. It has been attempted before, during the first Korath expansion. Multiple species linked their psychic and technological networks to create a unified defense." "Did it work?" Marcus asked. "Partially," the king replied. "The alliance held for several years before internal conflicts destroyed it. But the principle is sound. If we could coordinate the crystal networks of multiple worlds, the combined resonance might be powerful enough to disrupt enemy fleets across a vast area." Marcus felt a familiar chill as he realized what this would require. "The kind of harmonic coordination you're talking about would need an anchor, someone capable of maintaining stability across multiple star systems. Someone with unprecedented resonance compatibility," Princess Lyralii added quietly. "Father, the strain would be enormous. Even with Marcus helping me, attempting to link crystal networks across light years of space could kill you both," the king finished grimly. "I will not ask such a sacrifice of my daughter." "You're not asking," Lyralii replied with quiet determination.
I'm volunteering.
The alternative is watching peaceful civilizations fall to Karath brutality and Nexari mind control.
That is no choice at all.
Marcus stepped beside her. If she's going to attempt something this dangerous, she's not doing it alone.
My resonance compatibility may be the edge that makes the difference between success and destruction.
King Thorian looked between them, seeing the resolve in their faces.
Finally, he nodded slowly. Very well. But we will need allies, worlds willing to risk everything on an untested theory.
The Centauran Republic has crystal formations on several of their worlds, Princess Lyralii said.
And the Avalon Collective has been experimenting with harmonic communication networks.
I can contact the trade unions in the Meridian sector, Marcus added.
Some of those worlds have refugee populations with the right genetic markers for crystal compatibility.
The next few hours were a frantic rush of communication and coordination. Using the royal diplomatic networks, they reached out to allied worlds across the sector, explaining the threat and the desperate plan to counter it. The responses were mixed. Some governments were skeptical of the untested technology, while others were too frightened of Karath retaliation to risk involvement. But, slowly, a coalition began to form. The Centauran Republic agreed to provide access to their crystal formations.
The Avalon Collective offered their harmonic amplification technology. Even some of the more isolated human colonies pledged support, their refugee populations carrying genetic memories of past Karath atrocities.
15 worlds have confirmed participation, Chief Engineer Corvex reported as the enemy fleet drew closer.
Their crystal networks are being synchronized with our harmonic frequencies.
But, Captain Chen, the power requirements for maintaining stability across such distances will probably kill me, Marcus finished matter-of-factly. But, not before we save these worlds from conquest. Princess Lyralii took his hand, her touch conveying both gratitude and sorrow.
There has to be another way.
Maybe there is, Marcus said thoughtfully.
What if instead of one person trying to anchor the entire network, we distributed the load? Used multiple compatibility-enhanced individuals at key nodes throughout the system?
Theoretically possible, the king mused. But we would need people with the right genetic markers positioned on multiple worlds, and they would need crash training in crystal resonance techniques. The refugee populations, Marcus realized. Some of them must carry similar genetic markers to mine.
If we could identify them quickly and get them basic training.
It was a desperate gamble, but they were running out of time and options. Emergency teams were dispatched to allied worlds to identify individuals with resonance compatibility and provide them with accelerated training in crystal harmonic techniques.
Meanwhile, the main network was prepared with Princess Lyralii at its center, ready to coordinate the multi-system defense. The enemy fleet entered the outer system just as the final preparations were completed. Prince Theron's armada moved with the confident precision of conquerors who expected easy victory.
The lead ships began charging their weapons for orbital bombardment while troop transports prepared to deploy invasion forces.
All networks report ready, Chief Engineer Corvex announced. Harmonic frequencies synchronized across 15 star systems. Secondary anchors in position at 7 key nodes.
Marcus took his place beside the crystal throne, his hand resting on Princess Lyralii's shoulder as she prepared to attempt the greatest feat of crystal resonance in galactic history. Around them, the resonance chamber hummed with barely contained energy as massive power flows prepared to surge across interstellar distances. Begin harmonic integration, King Thorian commanded. Princess Lyralii closed her eyes and began the deep resonance song that would link her consciousness to crystal networks across dozens of light years. Marcus felt the familiar electric connection as their minds joined, but this time the sensation was amplified beyond anything he had experienced before. Through the expanding network, he could sense other minds joining the communion, the secondary anchors positioned on distant worlds, their consciousness adding stability to the growing harmonic field. Each new connection strengthened the overall network while reducing the strain on any individual participant. I can feel them all, Princess Lyralii whispered in wonder. Crystals on Centauri Prime, harmonic amplifiers on Avalon, even the small formations on the refugee colonies.
We're all connected. The network reached critical mass just as the first Karath vessels opened fire.
Energy beams that should have overwhelmed Zephyria's planetary shields instead struck harmonic barriers that extended far beyond the planet's atmosphere.
The combined crystal resonance of 15 worlds created a defensive field unlike anything seen in recorded galactic history.
But Prince Theron's alliance had come prepared for unusual defenses. Nexari mineships began broadcasting psychic interference designed to disrupt the harmonic connections, while Karath battlecruisers fired specialized weapons that targeted crystal formations directly. "They're trying to break our network connections," Marcus realized, feeling the strain as hostile forces worked to sever the links between worlds.
"The Nexari are using mental attacks to confuse our anchor points."
"Then, we adapt," Princess Lyralii replied, her voice carrying new harmonics as she drew on the combined strength of the entire network. "All participants, shift to defensive resonance patterns. Protect your anchor points and maintain synchronization at all costs." The battle became a conflict between opposing technologies and philosophies. Prince Theron's alliance represented conquest through force and domination, while the Crystal Network embodied cooperation and shared strength. Across multiple star systems, the two approaches clashed in ways that transcended simple military engagement. Marcus felt his consciousness stretched across vast distances as he helped coordinate the defense. Through the network, he could sense the determination of colonists on distant worlds, the courage of Zephyrian crystal singers, and the desperate hope of refugee populations who remembered the cost of Karath conquest. "It's working," he reported with amazement.
"The harmonic barriers are holding. Their weapons can't penetrate the synchronized fields."
But victory came at a terrible price.
The strain of maintaining connections across such distances was taking its toll on every participant in the network.
Marcus could feel some of the secondary anchors beginning to falter as their life forces were drained by the massive energy flows. "We can't maintain this indefinitely," Princess Lyralii said, her face pale with exhaustion.
"The network is stable, but the power requirements are enormous."
King Thorian studied the tactical displays with grim determination. "Then, we end this now, before our people sacrifice themselves to exhaustion.
All networks focus on maximum resonance pulse.
Target their command ship." It was the same strategy that had worked against the original Vrak invasion, but scaled up to interstellar proportions. Every crystal formation in the Allied network began building toward a single massive harmonic pulse designed to overload the power systems of Prince Theron's flagship. The Karath dreadnought was massive and heavily shielded, but it also contained crystal-based technology that made it vulnerable to harmonic attack. As the resonance pulse built to unprecedented levels, Marcus could sense the quantum entanglement between the Allied crystals and the corrupted formations in enemy ships.
"Now!" Princess Lyralii called out, releasing the accumulated power in one devastating wave.
The harmonic pulse propagated across space faster than light itself, carried by quantum connections between crystal formations throughout the sector.
When it reached Prince Theron's fleet, the effect was catastrophic.
Power cores overloaded throughout the Armada, with the massive dreadnought suffering the worst damage as its own crystal technology turned against it. Through the network, Marcus felt the moment when Prince Theron's flagship lost all power.
The mighty dreadnought went dark, its weapons offline and its engines dead.
Around it, the rest of the Alliance fleet began to break apart as ships lost power or suffered critical system failures. But the effort had pushed the crystal network beyond its limits. Marcus could feel the connections beginning to fray as participants across multiple worlds reached the end of their endurance. Princess Lyralii collapsed against the crystal throne, her consciousness barely maintaining cohesion after channeling such enormous energies.
"Network collapse imminent," Chief Engineer Korvex warned. "We're losing connection with the outer systems."
Controlled shutdown, Marcus commanded through the network, using his remaining strength to guide the withdrawal process.
"All anchors, reduce power gradually. Don't let the harmonics snap back uncontrolled." One by one, the connections faded as distant worlds withdrew from the network.
The great crystal communion that had spanned multiple star systems slowly contracted back to Zephyria itself, leaving Marcus and Princess Lyralii alone at its center. "Is it over?" she whispered, her eyes barely focusing as exhaustion overtook her. "It's over," Marcus confirmed, looking at the tactical display that showed Prince Theron's fleet in full retreat. The few ships that retained power were already jumping to hyperspace, abandoning their crippled companions.
"The alliance is broken."
King Thorian approached the throne, his face showing both relief and deep concern for his daughter's condition. The threat has passed, but at great cost.
Lyralii, can you hear me? The princess nodded weakly. I'm all right, father. The network held. Our people are safe.
More than safe, Admiral Kessex reported with satisfaction.
Long-range sensors show the enemy fleet in full retreat.
Prince Theron's flagship is drifting powerless, and the Korath battlecruisers are withdrawing to avoid capture. Marcus helped Princess Lyralii stand, supporting her as she swayed with exhaustion. The ordeal had changed them both in ways he was only beginning to understand. The deep connection they had shared during the network operation had forged bonds that went beyond simple friendship or alliance.
What happens now? He asked the king.
Now we rebuild and prepare for the future, King Thorian replied. The harmonic network proved that peaceful species can defend themselves when they work together.
Other worlds will want to join such an alliance. And Prince Theron?
Will face judgment for his crimes if we can capture him. But, more importantly, his alliance of conquest has been proven ineffective against coordinated resistance. The Korath will think twice before supporting another such venture.
Princess Lyralii straightened, drawing on reserves of strength that amazed Marcus.
Despite her exhaustion, her royal bearing returned as she contemplated the challenges ahead. Father, we should formalize the network that protected us today. Create a permanent alliance based on crystal resonance and shared defense. The refugee populations we worked with have as much right to security as any established world. The Crystal Alliance, King Thorian mused.
An interesting concept.
A confederation based on harmonic compatibility rather than political convenience. Marcus looked out at the stars visible through the resonance chamber's dome, thinking about the distant worlds that had risked everything to stand together against tyranny. The refugee populations, the peaceful colonies, the established civilizations, all united by their commitment to freedom and mutual aid. It could work, he said thoughtfully. Not just as a military alliance, but as a way for displaced peoples to find new homes and peaceful species to share resources and knowledge. You speak as if you plan to be part of this alliance's future, Princess Lyralii observed with a slight smile. Marcus met her luminous violet eyes, seeing in them the same strength and determination that had carried them through impossible odds.
Someone has to help coordinate between human colonies and Zephyrian crystal networks.
And I suspect we're going to face more challenges from species like the Korath.
Indeed we will, King Thorian agreed.
The question is whether we face them as separate worlds fighting alone, or as a united alliance drawing strength from our diversity. Over the following days, as reports arrived from across the sector, it became clear that the victory had consequences far beyond the immediate battle. Peaceful species that had never considered military alliance began reaching out to Zephyria, seeking inclusion in the Crystal Network defense system. Refugee populations started organizing themselves into formal colonies with the promise of protection and mutual aid. Prince Theron's defeat had inadvertently created the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization, one based on cooperation rather than conquest, harmony rather than domination. The crystal networks that had once been unique to Zephyria became the backbone of an alliance spanning dozens of worlds and multiple species. Marcus found himself at the center of these developments, serving as a liaison between human populations and the growing Crystal Alliance. His unique resonance compatibility made him invaluable in establishing new network connections, while his background as an independent trader helped him understand the needs of frontier colonies. You found your calling, Princess Lyralii observed as they worked together in the expanded resonance chamber, now equipped to maintain connections with allied worlds throughout the sector. I suppose I have, Marcus replied, watching harmonic patterns flow between distant crystal formations. Though I never expected to become a diplomat when I started out as a cargo hauler. Life has a way of leading us where we're needed most, she said with a smile. And, speaking of where we're needed, Father has announced his intention to step down as king within the year.
The succession ceremony will formally transfer the crystal throne to me. Marcus felt a moment of uncertainty.
A princess was one thing, but a queen was quite another.
Will that change things between us? Lyralii's expression grew serious.
Marcus, you saved my life, exposed a conspiracy that threatened our entire civilization, and helped create an alliance that will protect peaceful worlds for generations to come. You are my closest advisor, my most trusted ally, and... She paused, her luminous eyes reflecting depths of feeling that made his heart race. And someone I hope will stand beside me through whatever challenges the future holds. Before Marcus could respond, alarms echoed through the chamber once again. But these were not emergency signals, they were ceremonial chimes announcing an important arrival.
Long-range communications from the Galactic Council, Chief Engineer Corbex reported.
They are requesting formal diplomatic contact with the Crystal Alliance leadership. King Thorian smiled broadly. It seems our defensive network has attracted attention from the highest levels of galactic government.
The Council wishes to discuss formal recognition of our alliance.
That's incredible, Marcus said.
Official recognition would give us legitimacy and protection under galactic law. More than that, Princess Lyralii added.
It would establish the principle that peaceful resistance and cooperative defense are valid alternatives to military conquest.
We could become a model for other regions of the galaxy.
The communication system activated, displaying a holographic image of the Galactic Council chamber. Representatives of dozens of major civilizations looked on as the Council President, an ancient and dignified member of the Altarian species, addressed them directly. Your Majesties, we have observed recent events in your sector with great interest.
The defeat of the Koroth-backed alliance represents a significant development in galactic politics.
The Council would like to discuss formal recognition of your Crystal Alliance and potential expansion of its defensive network. King Thorian stepped forward with royal dignity.
The Crystal Alliance is honored by the Council's attention. We would welcome the opportunity to discuss how our model of cooperative defense might benefit peaceful species throughout the galaxy.
Excellent.
We are dispatching a formal diplomatic mission to your system. I trust you will provide them with a full demonstration of your harmonic defense capabilities?
Marcus exchanged glances with Princess Lyralii, both understanding the implications.
The Crystal Alliance was about to step onto the galactic stage as a major power in its own right. We would be delighted to demonstrate our capabilities, Princess Lyralii replied smoothly.
Though I should mention that our greatest strength lies not in our weapons, but in our unity. Indeed, the Council President agreed. Unity has become a rare commodity in these troubled times. Perhaps it is time for the galaxy to rediscover its value. As the communication ended, Marcus found himself standing at a crossroads of history. The small rescue mission that had begun with saving a princess from raiders had evolved into something that might reshape galactic civilization itself. Are you ready for this? He asked Lyralii. Being the leader of a galactic power is quite different from being heir to a single world. I'm ready if you're standing beside me, she replied, taking his hand in hers. Together, we've already accomplished the impossible.
I suspect we can handle whatever the galaxy throws at us next.
King Thorian smiled as he watched them, seeing in their partnership a hope for the future he had never dared imagine. The Crystal Alliance will need leadership that understands both strength and compassion, both human determination and Zephyrian wisdom.
You two represent everything this alliance could become.
Marcus looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's dome, thinking about the vast network of crystal formations now linking peaceful worlds across the galaxy. Somewhere out there, Prince Theron and his remaining allies were probably already planning their next move.
The Koroth Empire would not forget this defeat easily, and there were always new threats emerging from the unexplored regions of space.
But, for the first time since this whole adventure began, Marcus felt truly optimistic about the future. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of species like the Zephyrians who valued peace and cooperation over conquest and domination. The Crystal Alliance proved that such species could defend themselves when they worked together.
So, he said to Princess Lyralii, ready to save the galaxy?
She laughed, the sound carrying the musical quality of her people but also something uniquely her own, strength tempered with joy, wisdom balanced with hope. With you as my partner in this endeavor, she replied.
I believe we can save anything.
And, as the twin sons of Zephyria sat over the crystal spires of Resonance City, Marcus Chen, former independent trader, accidental hero, and, now co-founder of a galactic alliance, knew that his greatest adventures were still ahead of him.